Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from. Welcome to the Diaries of SARS-CoV-2 Genomics training webinar. My name is Laia Delgado Callico, and I'm the Communications Coordinator for COG-Train, and I'm based at the University of Cambridge. Today, I'll be chairing this event, and I'll be moderating the panel. COG-Train is an educational initiative developed jointly by the COVID-19 Genomics UK Consortium and Wellcome Connecting Science. It provides open access learning in SARS-CoV-2 genomics, and it aims to facilitate an increase in global genome sequencing and analysis capacity, reduce sequencing inequality, and enhance pathogen surveillance. This event is part of a series of blogs and webinars with educators and contributors from the COG-Train online courses. This event will be recorded and it will be uploaded to our YouTube channel and our website. Please feel free to add your questions during the event using the QA box at any point during the event, and I'll be keeping an eye on the questions. We also have 2 poll questions for the audience that will pop out during the event so we can get to know you, our audience. Without further delay, let's get to know our panelists. Hi, welcome all. Good morning. Can you all please introduce yourselves, talk about your background, whether you were directly involved with the COVID-19 pandemic, and what has been your involvement with the COG-Train courses so far? Let's start with Anna.
Hi, I'm Anna, and initially I trained as a pharmacist, but in 2008, I had my first postdoc as a virologist, and in 2016 became responsible for a sequencing facility at the Centre for Virus Research at the University of Glasgow in Scotland. So when we sequenced the SARS-CoV-2 genome from the first known Scottish case, we had no idea how the pandemic was going to shape the direction of our work in the following couple of years. So it ended up leading us to be part of a great consortium that was COG-UK, several publications, including the first one on the introductions of SARS-CoV-2 in Scotland, and later on to participate as a collaborator and educator in COG-Train.
And Malebo, please.
Good morning or afternoon to everyone. I am Malebo. I'm from South Africa. So I'm a genetic counselor. I trained at the University of Cape Town, and I'm currently employed at Stellenbosch University as a lecturer. And my responsibilities is teaching, but it's health science students and also clinical training. So I do a lot of clinics, or often clinics in the hospital, which is Tygerberg Hospital. And I'm currently doing my PhD with the University of Cape Town.
And Carlo?
Hello, everyone. Good morning or good afternoon. So I am Carlo Lapid. My background is in molecular and computational biology. I've studied at the University of the Philippines and at Washington University in St. Louis. And currently, for the past several years, I'm a bioinformatician at the Philippine Genome Center, a core facility for bioinformatics. We got involved with a pandemic because we were tasked with handling the bioinformatics a portion of our genomic biosurveillance program. I'm actually part of a larger team that has done a lot of excellent work in that area. And then we got involved with the COG-Train course because we were, Peter Thomas McEwen reached out to us to interview us for our story and how he got involved in all of this. And it was a nice opportunity to discuss that.
And Claudine?
Hi, everyone. I'm Claudine. So I have a background in human genetics, and I'm currently a PhD student at the University of Witwatersrand in South Africa. So currently I'm doing using bioinformatics analysis to analyze gut microbiome data. And so I was asked to join as an educator on the 3rd course on making sense of genomic data using web-based bioinformatics. That's it.
Yeah, so Carlo was a contributor to our first course, The Power of Genomics to Understand the COVID-19 Pandemic. Anna was an educator for our 2nd course, From Swab to Server, Testing, Sequencing, and Sharing During a Pandemic. Malebo was a contributor to the 2nd course as well, and Claudine to the 3rd course, Making Sense of Genomic Data, COVID-19 Web-Based Bioinformatics. The 1st and 2nd course are available on FutureLearn, and the 3rd course will be available in July. And let me define also the role. So an educator is educators of a course are a team of global experts who design the curriculum and decide about the content and how it will be delivered. And they also interact with the learners when the course is live on FutureLearn. And the contributors are experts based in different parts of the world that contribute with a small piece of content, like a short article or a short video. So we've met our panelists. Let's now see who our audience is. Now we can launch the polls. The first question in the poll should appear on your screens. Yeah. I'm sure our panelists would also like to know who our audience is, whether they have been students in one of their courses, prospective students, or fellow contributors and organizers of our courses. Let's give it a couple of minutes until I see most of you have already answered. I can already see the answers coming in. So far, yeah, we have several participants in the audience who have been students from both of our courses, some who have not yet, but I'm sure they are looking forward to join any of our courses, and also like lots of contributors and organizers from our team. Okay, now let's move to the next question. Now we want to ask about your background, whether you work in the healthcare industry sector, or you're a scientist, or both. You can answer multiple answers, or you are in the education, have an education role, or you are a student, a PhD student, or an undergraduate student, or other options. I see the answers coming in. We have lots of scientists, several educators and working in the healthcare sector, and several students as well. So we have a mixed audience. Okay, we can close the poll now, and let's get back to the conversation. So what were your motivations for collaborating with COG-Train and our courses? Let's start with Malebo.
Thank you for the question. For me, one of my colleagues, George Dorocha, actually approached me and asked if I would like to contribute. And I thought about it that, well, I'm not a specialist in COVID, but at least I'm a specialist in genetics. And I also understand the ethics, because as a genetic counselor, obviously the most important thing we have to deal with now with how technology is moving is data ownership and informed consent. And it's part of our day-to-day life, even when we're offering diagnostic testing to our patients, and what the labs will retain as information and all of that. So I thought it would be a wonderful way to contribute that information and all that I've learned to everyone who wants to take part in the course. So yeah, it wasn't something completely new, although I'm not COVID specialist, but at least the genetics part, informed consent, data ownership is something that I do on a day-to-day basis. So I thought I should just go for it.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for agreeing to participate. And Claudine?
So I was also approached by George, but for me, I figured it would be like a great first time experience, because I haven't really participated in like education before. So to be able to join this course and develop this course, and also network with other people that are involved globally, other researchers and scientists in the field, and also being a part of this web-based bioinformatics course, I feel like as I'm also trying to go through my PhD and some of the experiences that I have with the bioinformatics courses, I thought I'd also be able to contribute some insight that way as well.
Yeah, it was a good opportunity. And Carlo?
Yeah, so we were approached, like I said earlier, we were approached by the program manager for COG-Train. He reached out to the executive director of our National Institutes of Health, who's a good collaborator and friend of ours, who she told him about sort of our story, about how we had undergone training before in this area, about analyzing viral sequences and so on. And then when the pandemic hit, we ended up becoming one of the leading the sort of bioinformatics effort for the genomic biosurveillance. And I guess they thought it was an interesting story to tell, so they reached out to us and asked to interview us. So we contributed basically our story of how we came to be in this position. And I guess we we found it to be a, a small but rewarding experience because we got to sort of tell our story to an international stage. It's not something we've had the opportunity to do before. Tell them a bit about how we came to be in this position and the insights we've learned and the challenges that we've received. So I think really the benefit there, because we didn't really contribute as educators. We didn't develop the program, but rather we just got to tell a story that we were told would be inspiring to others. So I thought, hey, if we could share that with others and maybe uh, set some kind of example, then sure, why not? It seemed like a nice opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. And every experience is different. Now let's hear about Anna's experience.
So yeah, as soon as I realized that COG-Train were looking for help with the course, I wrote an email to volunteer. So initially I was producing material for the first course, but then became an educator for the second one. And the reason why I volunteered is because I'm a big fan of training events, both as an attendee, but also as an organizer. And I also think that as an organizer, in addition to the joy of sharing what we know, as the other panelists have indicated already, it's also a great way to network with other people, to learn with your new colleagues. And in my case, curiosity also played a role because I had never tried this type of platform like the Future Learn one, which has the potential of reaching a vast audience. So for me, the participation in COG-Train is an opportunity not only to share knowledge, but also to gain new knowledge.
Yeah, so Anna, you've talked about like trying a new platform. So I'm sure there were also some challenges when getting involved with our courses, like whether it was the first time doing educational material or online material, or whether the timeline didn't work for you, it was an additional workload, or the first time speaking in front of a camera or teaching in English or teaching to such an international audience. Can we hear about like what were your main challenges when developing the material? Like Anna, let's go back to you.
I think you touched a very important point. For me, one of the biggest challenges was time available to dedicate to these training events. So as a researcher, I'm sure most of people share this feeling that the days are never long enough and you have new challenges landing on your plate on a daily basis. So time is really important. And the second one was the approach to put the material of the course together. So as I think it has been explained now, there are several collaborators that are producing small pieces of material. So trying to integrate all that information together, it actually means that we are constantly having to do small readjustments until the very last minute. So that brings a bit of stress when we are trying to, to put a training event together, such as this one.
And Carlo, did you face any challenge?
Not really. Well, because our role is fairly small. Really, it was just an interview. It wasn't so much as a challenge, just sort of a novel experience. They gave us a little primer on a little bit of tiny media training on how to set up, being in a proper Zoom-based video interview properly, having the right background and the audio and the lighting and so on. It's actually kind of a charming experience. But the interview itself was very delightful once you got past all the technical experiences. George was who sort of organized, the technical aspect of it, was very kind and helpful in helping us through what we had to do and how to speak and so on, and helped us to relax and just not be too embarrassed about repeating ourselves. We stumble over our words and so on. And all in all, it ended up being very pleasant. I think the COG-Train group, the team, was very rewarding and helpful to work with.
Yeah, well, and it's also useful for this event, right? And well, a big shout out to George. You played a very important role.
Yeah, yeah, we have a lot to thank him for.
Claudine, do you want to share anything?
Yes, sure. For me, I think one of the challenges, especially as this was a novel experience for me, was knowing how to condense all the vast, like, potential educational material that is out there, you know, all the available tools and all the different resources that you can use, and just trying to make sure that you include all the relevant material without also overwhelming the potential students that we have. So just working together to make something that is relevant and, yeah, just not overwhelming for the student.
Malebo, do you want to add anything, or we can move on? Okay. So we've talked about challenges. Now let's focus on the positive things. And you've certainly helped us with our courses, but we also want to know if we've helped you, see whether engaging with our courses has helped you in your professional career. Let's hear from Malebo.
For me, I come from a very small clinical unit. So it's clinical unit of medical genetics and genetic counseling. So I think this was very nice to put ourselves out there to see that although we do a lot of clinical genetics and seeing patients, and that's our focus, but we're able to contribute to the greater genomics field, if I put it that way, as long as it's in health sciences. So for me, I think that was the biggest advantage, or where it puts us, is that it shines a little bit of light onto our clinical unit and also on genetic counselors, because I don't know about in other countries, but I know in South Africa, people don't actually know who we are until they need to see us, essentially. But finding different ways to show our skills other than seeing patients also makes people aware that genetic counselors are out there, although we do clinical genetics, but we're able to contribute to genetics and genomics as a whole. So I think for me, that was the biggest highlight.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know about this until I heard it from you. And Anna, you've talked about networking. Any other advances or like positive things that you've gotten?
Yes, it's definitely an advantage, because I always find myself, whenever I get involved in training initiatives, developing new skills. And one of the skills that Carlo mentioned is what you really learn regarding making videos online. So that was definitely some of the tricks and tips. I actually learned them after I failed during my videos correctly. So there's always a lot to learn. So those new skills are really invaluable.
Yeah, I agree. There's a quote from Robert Heinlein, an American writer, that I really like it. And it says, when one teaches to learn, that implies that anytime that there's a teacher, like the teaching is also learning. Carlo, what about you?
Yeah, sure. I wanted to echo a lot of what Malebo said. As far as helping my professional career at a personal level, it's been nice. I'm just part of a larger team, but they kind of pushed me to become the sort of the spokesperson to for the interview. So I unwittingly sort of became the face of our team. And then afterwards, the people from COG-Train reached out to me for an email interview for your newsletter. So that was another opportunity for me to, to just sort of share my thoughts and experiences, and then now this webinar. So in that extent, it's kind of been just this nice opportunity to speak to other people on an international stage. But what Malebo said resonated with me, because I think what was really nice was how we were able to put our name forward as an institution. So like I said earlier, I'm part of the Philippine Genome Center. The Philippines is a developing country, and our institution is relatively new. We're still building a name for ourselves in the national and international stage. And in fact, we sort of just were put on the map during the pandemic, because suddenly we were in this role of coordinating a genomic biosurveillance response for the country. When before the pandemic, most people here had never heard of the Philippine Genome Center. So we were in the news for a while. A local newspaper had interviewed us last year, and then now this opportunity to be interviewed and to have our story told to scientists, people doing similar work across the entire world, I think is very rewarding. So I think that was so it's not really so much my professional career that was helped, but really the opportunity to tell the world about the Philippine Genome Center and what it does and the biosurveillance effort that we've done for our country. I think that was really the rewarding part of the whole experience.
I'm very happy to hear about all the positive consequences.
Yeah.
And Claudine?
So for me, I definitely want to also echo the sentiments from the other panelists as well, and also from your quote of how with teaching, you also get to learn yourself. So I definitely felt that with putting together the material and also working with the other educators, and yeah, it really helped me to also like delve deeper into some bioinformatics and also potential collaborations in the future. The whole networking opportunity, global networking opportunities that we may not have had an opportunity to have without like this course and meeting new people. And yeah, I'm sure more will come from this.
So we've heard about the challenges of recording yourselves and doing an online course. So how does the experience of an online course compare to face-to-face teaching experience? So Malebo?
I've had the opportunity to teach before COVID, and it was all the usual, you go in front of the class and you teach and then give them, I don't know, test, assignment or something to do, and then that was it. I think the advantage of moving from just face-to-face that COVID brought in, it helped me to think broader and how to engage the students or the participants, because I also ran an online course, into more active learning, which I don't think many of us were very cognizant of prior to COVID. And the face-to-face, although it was hard, I must admit that doing online teaching and online courses and resources and all that does take a lot more time. But it has been great for me in terms of growth, but it also made me cognizant also of the other students' challenges. Before, we never thought of what challenges students may be going through, either on a personal level, on resources levels. Do they have laptops? Do they have those, or do they have to use the computer center at the university because they don't have access to their own personal computers? So with moving to online learning, it actually forced hopefully me and many people to start thinking also about the student, their experiences and what they could be going through that could be hindering their learning process. So I think as it compares to face-to-face learning, now that we're sort of transitioning into more blended learning, or blended learning, it's more helpful because I'm able to use what I've learned about online learning and actually making the face-to-face class time more useful. So it's not a lecture where I'm going to sit and teach them. They can do that from my pre-recorded lectures. But what activities are we having? Are we doing a flipped classroom kind of a thing? And all of that. So that is the greatest experience for me, is that I'm more present, I think, and I'm more conscious about what's happening for me and for the students and how best to get them engaged in the more active learning rather than just them cramming and then passing.
Yeah, and Anna, do you share Malebo's opinion?
Yes, absolutely. So I've been involved in face-to-face training events before, but more like one-offs, not really standard teaching at university. On the other hand, I also suspect that with face-to-face, the participants can get a bit more from the training, mainly those that are, they prefer learning through more practical activities. So I think there's still something that about the face-to-face training that is irreplaceable, despite the interactions that can also take place on an online platform. However, I can easily also understand the advantages of online courses, including, not having to travel, being compatible with work, and I think very importantly, the number of participants it can reach.
Yeah, exactly. So on our first course, we had over 2,400 participants, and in our second course, about more than 1,000. Sorry, I said 2,000 on the first, more than 2,000 and more than 1,000 on our second. So that's like a big difference compared to the capacity of a classroom. And Carlo, what about you?
Yeah, once again, I kind of want to echo the things that Malebo said. No, actually, yeah, and also what Anna said. So even though my role with the COG-Train wasn't as an educator, I would just record. I just had a interview recorded. I actually oversee a lot of the training that we do at our core facility for bioinformatics because our mission, in addition to providing bioinformatics services and doing research, is to offer training workshops and internships to scientists and students here in the country. So we used to do like the others here. We used to do our normal classroom based workshops and lectures and so on. We actually have a training room in our building with computers, and we lecture in front of them. And then when the pandemic hit, we had to really shift our gears and figure out how to pivot and provide that training in an online way. And just like Malebo said, one of the challenges is uh, making sure that they're engaged and designing our programs to have active learning, because we've found from experience that Zoom fatigue is a real thing, and it's really hard to hold people's attention. And I also know this as a participant, because I've also attended online trainings during the pandemic, and it's just when you're in your bedroom just attending a training for several hours, it's so easy to, and your camera is off, it's just easy to for your attention to drift. So there's that challenge, and of course there's all the logistical and technical difficulties that we've had to overcome. Anna said something about not having to travel. That's definitely true. It's nice that we've been able to reach a broader group of people, like you said about how you're able to reach like thousands of people for COG-Train. So our facility is located in the capital of the Philippines. So typically, if we conduct training, the people that we can service are the people here in the larger metropolitan area. Or if we have to give a training elsewhere in the country, we have to travel. Suddenly, with the advent of everybody just using Zoom, it's just we just host the lectures, we host the training, and anybody from anywhere in the country can participate. Like, we're holding an internship program just now. It started this week, and we don't have to worry about potential interns having to come here. We could reach out and host a virtual internship to people throughout all of the Philippine islands. So that's nice. But then there's the, I'm sorry if I'm going on too long. Please interrupt me if yeah. But there's also been the technical challenges, because we have to because we teach bioinformatics, right? So it's not just lecture based. That means they had to be able to access the software tools that we're training them in and run those tools on our HPC system, our high performance computing system. So that means we had to figure out how to give them a convenient way of remotely accessing our system without compromising our security, and making sure that it's easy to set up. So we had to figure out a web-based terminal thing. Actually, directly after this webinar, I'll be meeting with our IT specialist. He's going to teach me how to set up that terminal, so we're just not dependent on his expertise. So there's been a lot of pros and cons about the whole thing. Honestly, in my work as being an sort of training and education coordinator, I really have a lot to say about how the pandemic has affected both our work and education generally. It's definitely been a challenge. And I kind of agree with Anna that there's something about an in-person experience that you can't replace. But I don't want to, overlook the hidden or unexpected benefits of being forced into online training courses. So,
With our
yeah.
first course, we reach 130 countries. So we reach like a really, really big audience around the world. And that cannot also happen. It cannot happen in a face-to-face teaching in a classroom. And so our first course received an excellent score of 4.7 out of 5 reviews on FutureLearn. Our second course has 4.8 out of 5. We have also received excellent feedback from participants via Twitter and LinkedIn. And let me read some of them because like really nice things that they say about you. Let me read. So, amazing course, professionally presented, up-to-date information on a scientific level, excellently structured course, great lecturers. Great course to understand the important role of genomics in the COVID-19 pandemic. The content was rich, easy to follow, and concepts well explained. So we've shared the highlights from our participants. Were there also highlights from you? What would you share? What has been the highlight for you? Let's start with Anna.
So it's interesting, Laia, because during the second course, I was focused mainly on supporting the first week. And as I mentioned before, the workload outside of the event was really pressing on. So I had to disconnect immediately. So it's really good to see these sentences and the feedback from the participants. For me, it was really an amazing experience, and I would definitely do it again.
And Malebo?
The highlight for me is actually the positive comments more than anything, because when you're creating content for learning, you always wonder, how are they going to receive this information? Are they going to understand it the way I intend for them to understand it? Is anything going to be lost in translation? And to know that people actually were able to follow, they were able to understand, and I think one of the comments said that it was clear and easy to follow. So that is great, because yeah, I think I don't know about others, but I tend to be worried if they will receive the package or the resources quite well and they'll be able to engage with it, and that it also won't be overwhelming for them, because online courses can feel overwhelming because you don't have like support, as in you're not in a classroom, you don't have other students you can really talk to. So it's great that there is such a good rating.
And Carlo, comment briefly.
Yeah, sure. Like I said, I wasn't directly an educator. I was just really interviewed, so I didn't get to participate directly in the program itself, like that deal with the participants. But I think the rewarding part, in addition to the enjoyment of being interviewed, is seeing this feedback. I guess it's rewarding to hear that people enjoyed and found the course helpful. Personally, knowing how challenging it can be to develop an online course that's engaging and that people learn from, it's gratifying to see that this ended up being a success.
And well, Claudine, your course is not live yet, but you know what's coming. And now, Anna, you were the educator in our second course, and you mentioned that you were only live during the course during the first week, but there were a lot of comments from the participants during the month of May. How did you manage that volume of messages?
Well, so remember a while ago, I did mention that one of the important things for me is also the opportunity to learn. Well, this was one of the important things that I learned following the coaching we had as educators. So not only were some of the materials designed to encourage participants to contribute with their experience, but as educators, we were also encouraged not to jump in and immediately address the doubts and the questions. And instead, we should really be promoting the discussion amongst the participants such that, it's almost like each one of the participants could become an educator by sharing their own area of expertise or through searching their answers from shared material. And I really, really enjoyed, and I think it's such an important perspective regarding training, definitely a big one for me to take home. In terms of the way we were responding to that volume of messages, the fact that we had to screen them, but really let them, the participants, get on and trying to get the answers. So we were in average dedicating, I was 1 to 2 hours per day. And I think that worked.
Great, thank you. So we've already mentioned that our third course, Making Sense of Genomic Data, COVID-19 Web-Based Bioinformatics, will be available in July on FutureLearn. Claudine, can you give us a brief summary of what learners can expect from this course?
Yes, so So we're going to be introducing basic concepts of bioinformatics and how to analyze, how to apply these concepts to analyze SARS-CoV-2 sequencing data. We'll also be introduced to Galaxy. So this is our main web-based platform that we're introducing in this course, and how to use this to perform all the different data analyses that we introduce the students to. We also do cover bioethics in the context of genomic data and research, as well as how this data can inform epidemiology, investigations, and also the best practices for reporting and producing this data. So kind of an all-round course.
Before we move to the Q&A, let's have a final question. Do you have any advice for those looking to start their own training initiatives, or something you especially like or you didn't like and you would change from the course? Malebo?
From my experience is plan your time well, firstly, because it takes a lot of time, especially if you're creating a course from scratch. Have a plan, understand what you want to include. If you want to include external people to be contributors, as we did here, or educators as here, plan that all out and ask everyone for their contributions in time so that they have time to put together the material, because it does take a lot of work. Familiarize yourself with whatever learning management system you're going to work with, because if you don't understand that, it takes forever to get it. I know for me, I didn't have to do anything for the COG training in terms of uploading stuff and all that, but for the online course that I run, we had to have an appointment with IT just to show us what we need to do on the learning management system, which was very, very helpful. But importantly, think about who are you teaching, what do you want them to get out of the course? And if you can, having like 1 or 2 contact live sessions would be very helpful, just so that people don't feel alone throughout your entire course. I know doing it on FutureLearn is a little bit different, obviously, than me offering it via the university. It's more controlled, and I have a certain number, so I can set out when we're having a live lecture and all of that, just to ensure that people are engaging throughout. And diversity in your activities is also very key for the active learning. It shouldn't just be they listen to a recorded lecture and then they do an MCQ, but trying to make it interactive for them. Yeah, that's a little bit from my experience.
Yeah, in our courses, we have videos, article, quizzes. So, Carlo, what would your advice be?
Okay. Yeah, one advice I would have would be to not overlook the technical aspect of things. Maybe as scientists and educators, we might be focused a lot on, the theory, the concepts, the exercises, and so on. But I think what's helped our own trainings is we also have IT specialists with us that have helped to coordinate, the tech side of things, making sure that the software runs properly and is tested, that things run smoothly. It's easy for participants to connect to our systems and so on. I think I have a special appreciation for that side of work, because it's not something I have expertise in. I have to rely on others, and I really find it, I'm really rewarded by the contribution they have to our efforts. And another piece of advice that I'd have, I think this might echo again with what Malebo said, is about knowing who your audience is, knowing who you're training, because different people from different backgrounds have different training needs. We talked earlier about the nice thing about online trainings is that it can easily reach, hundreds or thousands of people, and that's nice. But sometimes it can really help to have focused trainings for specific groups. That's a lot of what we do, because people commission us to have a training. So sometimes I meet with our clients or somebody representing them and ask specifically, so what is it you want to learn? What background are you coming from? Are you proficient in these specific computational skills? What are you going to apply these learnings towards? What kind of research are you doing? And I think that's really helped us to develop our course materials in a more focused way, and it becomes a more rewarding experience overall. So if it's feasible to do it in that way, especially if you're in a situation where you're gonna train a smaller group and can meet with them directly beforehand, then that's definitely something that that people should do.
Yeah, we're taking a similar approach by running focus groups and for the development of our virtual courses and distributed classrooms, which are in a smaller setting. And Anna, what about you?
I think that's it's also important to consider that there are several types of training initiatives, and for people that want to become involved, not all of them need to have overwhelming objectives. For example, we do loads of one-to-one training on techniques in the lab, which are more informal and easier to adapt to the background expertise of the person in front of you. Another way, I guess, in terms of practicalities, how to get the funding to deliver training is to do it as part of a research grant application, mainly those grants associated to capacity building. They could be good opportunities to build some training in them. And finally, you can be part of larger training initiatives, working, for example, with the Welcome Connecting Science, where you can get additional support and guidance on how to deliver the training events.
And Claudine?
I think to add on with what all the other panelists have already said, I think what you really need to start with, or at least with my experience with this course, is to have a really good administration, like background team. Because putting together like everyone's schedules, especially if you're working globally, getting everyone together, summarizing all the meetings for maybe someone that wouldn't have been able to join, and also just, putting together the package of your educational material and providing feedback or where we can improve. And I just really think that part of it was really key to getting the courses out and what COG-UK training courses really do well.
Yeah, there's several of us within the COG-Train team that helped putting these courses out there, so a big shout out for them as well. And now let's jump to the Q&A. We have several questions already. So Lee, one of the COG-Train team members, he's asking especially to Claudine and Malebo, how has it been moving across from human genetics in the middle of a pandemic to work on viral genomics? Claudine, do you want to go first?
I think with this experience, it was more generally about like the web-based bioinformatics that I feel like you could use in human genetics, which I've done myself, but it's also really applicable in viral genomics. So I think in terms of what we were teaching, it was more broad when it came down to what actual, like maybe the organism, it's not humans that we're looking at now, it's like viral, it's viruses, but it's still the same like approach, it's still the same software and tools. So I think that way it was an easy, you could say, transition for me.
And Malebo?
I agree with Claudine, and for me it was much easier, I guess, because I was doing the informed consent stuff and data ownership. So it's basically ethics and involving human participants and human data, regardless of whether it's related to viruses or to mainstream human genetics. So it wasn't a difficult transition for me because the concepts are the same at the end of the day, and how you work ethically as a researcher or as a scientist or in clinical practice, it has to remain the same across the board, because that's what keeps us aligned with the ethical principles. So I didn't have any trouble with that.
And Lee has a second question for Anna and Carlo. How has it been having lots of non-viral geneticists coming across to the virus field to help out? Were there any particular challenges? Anna, do you want to go first?
I guess, specifically in our working group, we were mainly dealing with people with experience in viral genomics. But I also am a strong believer that it's really through the merging of different fields of know-how that science can truly evolve. And I think SARS-CoV-2, this pandemic was a big opportunity for that to happen, to create a big pot of know-how and move research forward.
And Carlo, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, sure. I couldn't agree more with what Anna said. It's actually been surprisingly productive. So in our immediate team, the bioinformatics team, doing the genomic biosurveillance work, none of us are true virologists. Some of us are have a molecular biology background, so we know something about viruses. But we, as the team grew, we took on people with a computer science background, statistics background, and so on. And a lot of it was building our pipelines and methods and visualization tools to analyze the data and visualize it and communicate that to others. So really, it's the lack of virological expertise wasn't really the problem. It was really productive rather to have people from many different disciplines coming in to offer their own insights and their skills, because it's a multifaceted problem, right? Viral geneticists are doing incredibly important work from the pandemic, but there are so many other things that also need doing, and there's so many contributions from other fields. So I think that is what we ended up doing in our team.
Yeah, multidisciplinary teams are stronger teams.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's bioinformatics, right? Bioinformatics is innately multidisciplinary. So it worked out well.
We have another question. We have George in the audience, and he says, I have a question for our educators and contributors. Did you see any great or really funny questions online from the participants? Anything unexpected? He says that the course is open to the internet, so anything could happen. Anyone has any mention, any funny experience? Please go ahead. Nothing weird happened? Okay, so no funny story for you, George. We have another question from Pete, also from the COG-Train team. Has involvement in COG-Train courses as an educator or contributor encouraged you or your team to participate in future education initiatives? So Anna, you mentioned the other courses from Welcome Connecting Sciences. Have you been involved after this? Has this encouraged you to participate in other courses?
So I am actually involved in other initiatives with the Welcome. As I said, I'm very fond of training events. And yes, absolutely. I just really hope that there was always more time to be more involved in these type of initiatives, but an absolute positive experience.
And the others, anyone wants to answer this one?
Yeah, I mean, already my work is already engaged with education because I coordinate, trainings and workshops and internships here. But having been involved with COG-Train, it's actually opened up other opportunities. Actually, I owe George an email because he reached out to us to participate in another initiative you're organizing, a distributed classroom thing. I really have to meet with George soon to discuss that further, because we're very interested in in joining that initiative. I think it can be a really helpful, another kind of avenue to reach out and train and assist many other people. So yeah, sorry George, I've been busy, but I will get in touch with you soon to talk about that.
We are looking forward to counting with you from future courses. And Claudine, Malebo, do you want to add anything?
I think for me, yes, it's been a great experience, and just learning a lot as well. Like we were saying before with the teaching, and it's definitely something I'd want to do in the future as well.
And Malebo, any final answer?
I agree with all the other panelists that it is something I would like to do going forward, contributing and being part of something like bigger than just the divisions or departments we're part of.
Thank you. So we have another question from Lee. Based on your experiences in the pandemic and these courses, what do you think could or should be covered in an upcoming courses that may not have been covered yet? Anyone? So we have lots of courses coming, but if we were to develop more courses, what should be covered?
I can just give a brief comment, because these pandemic with SARS-CoV-2 really triggered the discussion around preparedness. How can we be prepared to new viral threats? So I think that could be a nice one to explore.
Anyone else?
Yeah, as for me, I don't know exactly what has or hasn't been covered in COG-Train since I wasn't a participant. So I think I can just rather speak to what I would like to learn more of. And I think it would be helpful to have more training in epidemiology, because that's really not where my background is. Like my background is molecular biology, computational biology, and epidemiology is itself. I'm not a doctor. I don't have any medical expertise, much less epidemiological expertise. We work with the Epidemiology Bureau of our Department of Health, but as scientists, I think that's sort of a gap in our knowledge and it involves a lot of sort of mathematical modeling, computational and statistical techniques that I think we could relate with. And I think it might be fruitful to have some kind of course or training that covers that aspect of pandemic management.
We are taking notes. And Claudine and Malebo, do you want to add anything, or we can move to the next question? Okay, so we have our final question from Tracy. While putting the course together, did you secretly wish that you had some of the skills of some of the other team members?
Oh, if you don't mind my speaking up, no, it's not a secret. I'm working with really bright people. Actually, pretty much everyone I'm working with is younger than me, and I'm openly jealous at how talented they are, how skilled they are. A lot of them are just freshly graduated. We train them as our former interns, and they can see all of their hard work, their potential, their skill in developing our tools and systems and techniques. And honestly, it makes me feel a little bit like a dinosaur seeing the things they come up with. So yeah, it's not a secret wish. I really wish I had the skills of many of my team members. They've done great work.
And the others, Anna, for example?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. Like, absolutely, yes. When sometimes you think that you know about a specific subject, and then you read the material that someone has put together, and you just learn so many things, and you're like, oh my goodness, I really should really know this, and I never heard about this. So it was a really, really exciting way of improving our knowledge. Like, absolutely.
Yeah, I think I would feel the same way.
If I could share just a small anecdote. Before, with our core team, before we hired people for biosurveillance, I was sort of seen in our team as the statistics guy. Not because of any real expertise, but because I've picked up stuff over the years. And then, so I tried to do my best to give statistical insight to our work. And then when we hired somebody in our team who's a real statist, someone with an actual degree in statistics, and suddenly I felt like I was exposed as a fraud because she really knew what she was talking about rather than just what I was trying to contribute. And it was really rewarding to see, oh, this is what somebody who's a legitimate expert in this field, this is what they can contribute, and these are the techniques that they know, and they can explain things so much better. So yeah, multidisciplinary teams are really the way to go. It really does help.
And Malebo, do you share the same feeling?
Yes, especially for bioinformatics, because I understand it basically because I need to for my job and what kind of results we can expect and things like that. But then maybe like doing the actual bioinformatics like Claudine and them do, I would really love to have that skill. I think it's amazing. And yeah, so I think that's the skill I wish I had that other people have.
And same for you, Claudine?
Yes, definitely. I think there's always more to learn. And sometimes with the people that you're working with, you can see like, that's what I want to be, that's where I want to be. That's how much more I want to know. And yeah, it's definitely been great just being able to work with these other experts and learning from them, and definitely wanting to have their skills set.
Well, thank you. That was our last question. So we've reached the end of our event. Thank you, panelists, and thank you to the audience for joining us. Thank you also to the COG-Train team, and especially to Kim Smith for helping organize this event. Our next event will be Tuesday at 3 in the afternoon in the British Summer Time. We'll have a different panel with 5 educators and contributors and reviewers, and I'll be chairing the terrain again. I hope to see you there. I hope you enjoyed this session, and I wish you a warm goodbye. Thank you. Bye-bye.